Welcome to our last session. It's kind of sad, like it's already the last session of the conference in this room. But nevertheless, it ends with a love story. That's what I heard. Today we have Oliver here. He is a software architect at Excellent Solutions in Ulm. And the fun fact of him is he's actually a UI5 trainer since this year. And this talk is about our love story and excellent learnings from the past and prediction of a possible future. So the stage is all yours.
Thank you. So, hello, and I just want to make sure everybody's here in the right place. This is not a snake oil presentation, so I will not give you anything that you can really take, and this is a solution. This is a love story from 10 years in the past, how we perceived everything and how we can somehow predict really the future of it. And since it's a quick fire, I will just be quick on it. So this is me 10 years ago. We'll start with this. 10 years experience also with UI5. It all started exactly with this project that I will be mentioning. We are doing a lot of projects, different kind of technology. And at that time, when all this suddenly happened in the last 10 years, it was that part when also last year UI5 was released 10 years ago. And the birthday was celebrated, there was a web framework boom. I mean, there were a lot of frameworks out there, and UI5 was just one of them. And this first 3 years was a lot of attention on different things, and React and Angular, you know it. And we had really struggled finding the right solutions. I mean, we had this kind of, I don't know, if you know Vardin and Echo and so on, we found frameworks. We wanted to participate somewhere in, I don't know, Ohio or something. So hopefully something beautiful from the code experience. We also used prime phases, whatever the client actually needed. And it was, of course, hard for us because all those Java people that we were wanted to make it more like Java, and at the same time, we wanted to be, forget my time. We wanted also to somehow scale the teams, and it was not possible because there were a group of people and they were actually fighting with each other. Of course, React is better than Angular and Vardin, and wait for Angular 2 coming out and throwing everything away. So it was really roulette at that time. And our boss actually introduced something like, so now we're doing UI5. And this UI5 thing was not a thing anywhere. I mean, this was not on the conferences, it was not on the blogs. It was a tiny thing from SAP. But it, from the beginning, was the start of something much bigger for us as a company. And with this, what we read, this Fiori especially, this floor plans, this consistent components everywhere, we didn't see anywhere else. I mean, if you went to Angular, you had to do it yourself, then you had to put a library in, whatever. Here, it seemed to be all contained. And it looked like, well, it's from SAP, so either it will survive 1 year or will be 10 years, was not for sure. And the comments among the developers was more like, well, jQuery and so on, this is old school, cannot work. And yeah, it took some time. And we had this first prototype. And this first prototype was really interesting because it was actually just a small internal project that we could use somehow to promote for a customer another project that was using HANA at the same time, very early technology. And it was a whole test pilot. And we saw the potential at that time to some extent because, of course, React was out there and Angular, and the fights were still there. But it looked like if we could use this in the future, then it might happen that we even save time. So let's go to the UI5 Con in Frankfurt at that time, and we promoted something like a semi-flux pattern. So something from React, really something critical, important that UI5 was missing, event handling everywhere and storing and so on. And at that time, around 2015, 16, this single page applications really went up, and with all these problems that would arise later, but everybody was just on it. I mean, this was the thing, fast, responsive, feedback from the user from the browser. You clicked and it was instantly. There are no loading times, just loading some data from the server. And at that time, as I said, we started our really big project, and yeah, we modified UI5 so much because it was possible, because why not? We made it a bit this semi-flux pattern there to make it more like React. We separated the services and the controls to make it more like Angular. And since we were from the Java community, we created the whole build system to be more like feature-driven, so really far away from the defaults. And at that time, we already created something like component libraries. We had to, because there was nothing really useful for the client from the Fiori stuff. But at some point, it worked. It worked. And yeah, at the final end, we had something like 17 modified new custom controls. We wanted to contribute them. It was that time when everybody wanted just to contribute something to UI5 because it was so incomplete, it looked like. And we had 16 actions, as you can see there, with everything, every case. But this was not the standard. I mean, we were far, far away from this. And yeah, the shadows are really were falling on casting on our project. And we even had this movie. Somebody knows this movie? It is about, yeah, it's funny. It's working for every project, I guess. If you take something from the stock, take this one. This movie is about a nuclear reactor submarine, like a project, going outside using prototype technology. And yeah, guess, this thing was from Russia, so it was not working, obviously, so good. But at the end, it's about team management and so on, and some survive. So what we built finally was something like a big monolith. And this monolith, out of this custom controls, and was showing where the problems were at that time for UI5. And it was about a large manifest. You could not really handle it because it was really stuck. The whole routing, everything was inside for all those pages. The OData binding was, of course, possible to be used for simple use cases. But since we wanted it in a different way, we had to put a lot of stuff in it. And we couldn't handle it so well. And this React mimicking was also getting in our way, of course. We had difficulties to maintain it because it was so far away with this asynchronous callbacks that UI5 used at that time, too much to make it somehow really be like React. And one guy later joined the company, Michael Engelbrecht, who also wrote those books about UI5. He looked at us and said, why did you do that at all? Because why? It was really hard for us to imagine in a different way, because we were used to modify everything, to customize even the framework. And UI5 was able to handle it. And yeah, of course, the tools at that time were about, you know, all those stuff that nobody was mentioning anymore. This little bird and stuff, no NPM, no really package manager. There were a lot of them out there. And yeah, we needed a new strategy. And this is what we came out with. For the big things that we used, we could somehow later on use micro front ends in this way. So to use this component, multi-component way, this was possible somehow to handle this complexity much easier also for scaling the team up. We used custom control libraries to separate those parts that were not really for the customer, but more in general custom UI. And CQRS pattern saved our whatever. So separating the view to select these queries and also actions. And everything was supported from OData to whatever. And we also had to kill some of our React UI monster. We just throw it away. So that's a solution. Don't do this stuff. And later on, we experimented a lot with web components. And because, why? There was no rich text editor in UI5 to this day. But we built a really beautiful one. And yeah, and we used the CLIs tooling from UI5 since 2018. I think it's usable. And it was working for us. This is Ulm in every season. There's a lot of fog. But there was a problem. This web standards gained attention, and there was a corona, and now multi-page applications with a lot of other stuff appeared. And somehow, UI5 still looked aged. And we started another project, and this was now not at all on anything that it was necessary. It was not, we could have used React or Angular, but we used actually UI5 to have a whole custom experience for the client, because it was an enterprise thing. There was a validation concept that we needed. It was already described in the Fiori design guidelines. We had something like discussions, a lot of discussions we were facing, and it was so much easier with us to just show Fiori on saying, well, you want it like this? Yes, it is a way, without any speculation. Let's do it this way or that way. That was really saving us time. MicroApps worked perfectly at that time, 2022, and I think it is making everything so much easier. You can open with a button a whole other component, and once it's just a small dialog, once it's a huge window, a thing on its own. The tooling really worked well. We did not have to modify anymore. We had to just really throw everything out, and it looked really mature now. And this is something we could also say, at least for the web component, somehow mixing. We were putting our cool thing there inside. It looked something like this. So custom, again, library, and this was wrapping another Diaflow React component that was giving out this kind of web component standard. And inside was Quill.js, and this is really a great editor. If somebody from the UI5 core team wants rich text editor with some future possibilities, please take this one, then we can throw our thing out. But web components will help us already and make it much easier to come out here with this kind of thing. I mean, you need to sometimes put things together, and you have not everywhere the same knowledge. This is, by the way, how it looked like. So what you see there is React inside, and we use the web components from React inside this React component, and the whole thing was an editor, and this editor actually was a web component that was included again in UI5. You don't see any difference. What you see is a really integrated experience, and the customer, I guess the customer to this day doesn't know how elegant this is and how elegant it can be. If you work with just this web technology, and especially UI5, it's very easy to manage, because it is 10 years old. You have also experience over time, and not like React or Angular, where they just throw a lot of concepts away and make it much harder. So our 10-year summary from this was, at the end, the web component GraphQL that we also used because of the UI5Con. We're so inspired. Well, you can do it all. GraphQL, well, yeah, I would say it makes a lot of problems at the one end, and some other parts are much easier in OData. We could easily handle it on HANA, on freestyle applications, and no problems, because out of this flexibility to allow different things in JavaScript or now TypeScript, you can actually handle almost everything that you need. And web components to the rescue will help you just to fit in the small things that are missing. And we think still to this day, it's the only thing there, and that's really the love that we think there is There's nothing else out there that has so much enterprise features like the validation concept. Please implement it in the core thing, because it's also missing, but it's described already in Fiori guidelines. And on the other hand, we have something like this consistency over time. 10 years, and you can still check out the code, and it still looks similar. It's boring, really boring. You want something boring on production, nothing exciting. Exciting stuff you don't want, especially not on Friday. So, and the maintenance cost, I asked some colleagues, and they said, well, the great thing about it is I just need 1 or 2 guys. For React, I need to update so regularly, so much effort in finding the right things there in NPM dependencies to make it work the next time it's updated, and the concepts are changing very fast. So for the future, my wish list would be, don't change so much in UI5. It's already good like it is, and it will survive. And yeah, but you know, the conference in 2024 cannot come without the AI word, and this is now the big thing that I see happening as, let's say, as a prediction. And if you see this kind of, it is a circle, half a circle, we started all with a very less complexity, PHP, whatever, things like Web.Pro, anything started on the server. And we separated it in a way that it's now on the front end. UI5 also did the same, single-page applications. What are they? They are actually very fast approach for the user, but at that time, resources were very expensive, it seems so. Now we have different things happening, like Jamstack, multi-page applications, where you pre-render a lot of stuff, and or like React is doing lately, something like be back on the server, or like now Fiori Elements is doing, pushing back to the server everything and just throw it out. So what are we doing there with a single page application in the future would be the big thing. And there it is, my predictions for the future in this way. Of course, we will have AI plugins that help us. Of course, we will have a lot of an implemented validation concept from UI5 in the next 10 years, I hope so. A rich text editor bundled in Quill for sure. And I also think this single page applications will vanish. We will not see them in the front-end developer as we know it, him or her or it will go full stack back again to the back end. And this makes sense because the complexity, as you know, is not away. It's just moving around. And we have specialized so much that you have now to decide, do you really want a front-end developer in your team or a full-stack developer with the right tools on it? I think in the next 10 years, we will see UI5 be in the background, being the web components, the routing, whatever. And what will happen is that we will have developers in the backend be so expressive or just make a photo of something that the UIs are just shuffling and generated in this way. And then it will happen that we do not need this kind of specialization anymore. And also this NPM stack and so on, these wars will end between React and so on. Also React is on this, I mean, if you look on the job opportunities, nobody wants React anymore. They only want Next.js with React. There it's happening the same time. It's already consolidating in a way that they want to push it back. And if you experiment with React on the server side, then you have the feeling you're really 10 years ago in PHP. There's the select, and then you just throw it out, and what happens? So this is something I would predict, and yeah, I hope. Thank you for those that were left in here and betting on the right talk to have the beer just before the others. And yeah, now it depends, of course, on your questions. But thank you all for your attention, and especially the core team for 10 years, giving us enough to do. And yeah, since that this year I'm actually was promoted to SAP trainer for UI5. So this is something that could only happen because of UI5, because of my love to UI5, my personal. Yeah, that's it.
Thank you so much, Oliver. We heard the dark side, the gray area, and the love towards UI5. I also heard the rich text editor a lot, but also the GraphQL.
GraphQL, yeah, we adapted this as well.
Right. So we still have 5 minutes for Q&A. If there are any questions in the audience.
So thank you very much for your presentation. It's really funny to hear that history, which I myself consider to be a real chaos a few years ago with all these existing frameworks. But maybe one question, you told us that you tried at some point to implement this Flux architecture in some way in UI5 and then switch to a CQRS-based approach, which can also be found in Redux implementations, for example, for React. Did you follow up on that? Is that still something you try to achieve? Because I think the unidirectional pattern is still pretty elegant, but did you give up on that, or is that still present?
Well, we didn't give up. Actually, we found something from SAP that they dropped just like this in the Java world. Once, they had this HANA and then this HANA XS Classic, stuff like this. And once there was a Tomcat, and there was this OData part that it just directly could go over this ORM mapper. And we still use this also in different projects. And there we promoted it, especially because this is OData 4. And in this version, it makes totally sense to go with these actions. And on the other hand, to really use database views to somehow promote something like a layer to be read and filtered and stuff. That makes sense. Because you really have a big problem just giving out your whole database, and then on the other hand, just as a simple case, will work like Fiori Elements is doing. It's not out there in production. No, we are really using this as the first citizen in our world.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Any more questions here?
They're all dried out for the beer, I guess.
Yeah, most likely, right? So then thank you very much, Oliver, for the presentation. And we still have a wrap up in Audimax at 6. So now take a short break and hopefully see all of you at the wrap up. So thank you very much.